So what's this cute little thing? Could this be a self-defense tool? Yep, it's a collapsible baton. It's made by Smith & Wesson. It's their 12-inch model. They have several different sizes available, and this here is the smallest. The model code is SWBAT12B. It comes with this stretchy sleeve right here, which I usually take off. It's, in principle, I like the idea of, having that extra strap to secure it to your hand. But the problem is it's just not very well made, unfortunately. You'll see, first of all, I noticed that it tends to slide quite a bit up and down. So it's not particularly secure on there. And despite me having barely used it, the thread has already started to come undone here. So yeah, this thing is just kind of cheap and not really all that well made. So let's forget about that. The other thing that I personally don't really use is the belt clip, because again, it's not particularly useful. The clip is just too loose. It doesn't really do much for you other than, well, it's unpleasant in the hand. It's simply not very comfortable to hold on to. So let's forget about that as well. And now let's get to the positive aspects of this. Well, first of all, it's small, obviously, especially when you collapse it. Collapsing it, like with all friction lock batons, it can be a bit of a hassle. You basically either have to basically slam it down, tip first on hard material like concrete or whatever other available surface that is smooth and hard, or you can also tap it against something sideways. Like I don't have anything suitable right here, so I'm just going to take my rubber mallet and smack it a little bit, turn it around, smack it again, and then it just, yeah, you see, pretty easy to close if you do that. This is not much longer than my palm. It can actually be used as a coup-baton, without extending it if you don't have the time. So this still makes for a pretty good impact tool, but when you extend it, it packs quite the punch. I was pretty surprised by having such a small baton do quite a bit of damage. I tested it against a squash first, and then on some wood, which the latter is of course abusive test. That's not something that you would normally hit with a baton, but it held up pretty well. So let's check that out. That was actually kind of a casual strike. Not much force in it, but already pretty effective. Now I'll put a bit more power into it. Whoa! Yeah, safe to say I would not want to be hit with this. Well, suffice to say, that would hurt a lot. So this little thing here has held up remarkably well. The steel, by the way, that it's made of is STKM2A carbon steel. And I was quite impressed to see that there was no damage to it. There was the final part here was very, very slightly bent. After the tests, you could hardly even tell, and I did straighten it back out again. There was not much to do really, and right now it's pretty much perfectly straight. You can't even tell. And it was really just minimal damage. One thing that I noticed is that apparently the finish does seem to rub off. So you can see right here I have a bit of black rubbed off on my hand, or maybe that was the sleeve. I'm not entirely sure. No, never mind. It does rub off a little bit, as you can see here. So I guess it's not the most durable finish, but I mean, this is one of those things that are not supposed to look nice. It's supposed to work. It's supposed to keep you safe, you know, protect you against an unlawful assault, and this thing would definitely deliver in that regard. It's very easy to carry. You can basically stuff it in whatever pocket you want. It has some texturing here on the grip to make it non-slippery. And yeah, it definitely does the job. It's not overly aggressive, so it doesn't rub uncomfortably on your hand. But yeah, it definitely does what it's supposed to. I basically have one complaint about this, other than the unfortunately cheap quality hand strap and the belt clip. At first it can be kind of hard to open. It probably just takes a bit of breaking in, but just as a heads up, if you do plan on buying one of these for self-defense, I definitely suggest playing around with it quite a bit before you're carrying it, because it does have a break-in period for sure. At first, it is pretty hard to actually open it, at least this one. There may be some variation from one to the other, but in general, it is noticeable at first that it is kind of stiff. But if you give it a pretty hard swing, which you would anyway, I mean, in a stressful situation, you would probably overdo it anyway. So it might not be an issue after all, but I mean, it is always a good idea to familiarize yourself with a self-defense tool before actually carrying it. You need to make sure that you can draw it quickly, and that you can deploy it easily, and that you have a general idea of how to use it. I was definitely impressed by how hard this little thing hits. It's quite the impact for such a small size, and it would prove very useful. Just another heads up, if you do plan to carry one of these for self-defense, check your local laws, because unfortunately it is not legal everywhere to carry a baton like this. In my opinion, it absolutely should be. It is an excellent self-defense choice. It is non-lethal, or well, I should say less than lethal. If you hit someone over the head with it really hard, it could become lethal, but in general it is a non or at least less lethal alternative. So it's quite a good choice, really. And especially for the price. Like, you can find it for $25, and that is really not much to ask for a reliable self-defense tool. If I could improve something about this, I would probably add an extended piece here at the cap with a lanyard hole, because a lanyard would be very useful for this, in my opinion. Not only for retention, but also if you had a paracord lanyard here, you could actually grasp that and get even more momentum swinging it that way. That would be extremely useful to have that. So overall, quite a nice choice for $25. There are of course high-end batons, but if you don't have that much money to spend, or if you want something very small specifically, this is definitely a good choice. So I hope you enjoyed the review, and thanks for watching.